Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2023 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final race of the season and one of my least favourite races of the year. Why? Well, partly because the track looks like it should give us some great racing but doesn't always, but mostly because it is now always the season finale, which means there is a long, although not so long these days, wait until the new season starts. So I'll be doing absolutely everything I can to enjoy the weekend and hopefully the season goes out on a high. Enough of all that waffle though, let's crack on with the final preview of the year, starting as we always do with a look at the track and all the usual stats that follow. So last weekend F1 was in Vegas for the first time since the 80s, with Max Verstappen taking his 18th win of 2023. Insane numbers, but now it is on to Yas Marina for, again, the final race of the season. A lap of the Yas Marina circuit is 5.281 kilometers long. That is just over 3.28 miles if that's your thing, and is made up of 16 corners with a race lap record of a 1:26.103, which was set by Max Verstappen in 2021. And come Sunday, we are set to see 58 racing laps. There will once again be two DRS zones in action for this one, with the first zone running down that long straight between turns 5 and 6 with its detection point on the run to turn 5. And the second zone is from turn 8 to turn 9 with its own detection point just after the chicane of 6 and 7. If there is one thing I love about this track, it is the positioning of those DRS zones, because the second detection point means if a driver is passed in the first zone, they immediately have the chance to fight back in the second zone. In my opinion, that is how DRS should be at every track where possible, but I've been banging that drum for about 6 years now. Since its debut on the calendar in 2009, the circuit has hosted 14 races, with Lewis Hamilton having won the most races at the track with 5 victories. And last year, Max Verstappen took his third win on the bounce in Abu Dhabi as he led home Charles Leclerc and teammate Sergio Perez. It is also worth mentioning that the last 8 races in Abu Dhabi have been won from pole position, so qualifying could be very important on Saturday. And here's a stat for you based on that. Even processional Monaco has had more non-pole winners in the last 8 races than Yas Marina. When I read that stat, it honestly surprised me, so I wanted to share it with you. I'm just that generous. What it also conveniently did was give me the number 8, and 8, as well as being Romain Grosjean's former race number, is also the number of tyres in the whole Pirelli range if we include the inters and the wets. Oh yes, that is right, people. For the final time, it is tyre talk time once again. It's all very emotional. The compounds available for this one then are once again the softest in the Pirelli range, and so they are the hard C3, the medium C4, and the soft C5. Now, Yas Marina isn't all that demanding on the tyres, and the surface isn't too abrasive either, which is why Pirelli is able to bring the softest compounds. Good traction is quite important here, especially in places like the exit of the turn 6-7 chicane. You don't want a bad exit leaving you vulnerable on the run to turn 9, and good traction will also be important through the twisty final sector. Another thing for teams to consider will be the falling track temperatures during Sunday's race and how that could impact strategy. One final thing quickly worth mentioning as well as a reminder more than anything is that FP2 will be the only fully representative practice session because it starts at the same time of day as the race will on Sunday. As for strategy, last year's winning one was a one-stopper with Max Verstappen starting on the mediums before switching to the hards on lap 20, running those to the end. Second place, Charles Leclerc basically doing the same thing, but he pitted a lap later. Although 11 drivers pitted twice last year, so we could see a good mix of strategy again on Sunday. The fastest pit stop in 2022 was carried out by McLaren with a 2.32 second stop for Lando Norris, and the total pit lane lost time last year was largely between 21 and 23 seconds according to the FIA. As always, safety cars are something to consider when it comes to strategy, and we have seen them at Yas Marina over the years, with 5 of the previous 14 races featuring at least one full or virtual safety car appearance, and we've seen 1 at 2 of the last 3 races in Abu Dhabi. The weather for this one will be considerably warmer than it was in Vegas, and as of Wednesday afternoon, the forecast says we are in for a warm and dry weekend. No major surprises there. Yes, we did get a sprinkling of rain during the race in 2018, but not enough to affect the running. Right now, the forecast says Friday will be dry with highs of 29 degrees for FP1 and 27 degrees for FP2. Saturday is very similar, with temperatures expected to hit 27 degrees and 26 degrees for FP3 and qualifying respectively. There is a lingering threat of rain through the morning on Saturday, but is not currently expected to affect any running. But if it's a big enough shower, it could wash some of the rubber away and give us a green track. But there are support races this weekend, so might not be a big deal, but we'll see. And for the race on Sunday, the risk of rain is currently 0, with temperatures forecast to hit 28 degrees in time for lights out. As always, though, that is the forecast as of Wednesday afternoon, so don't be surprised if things change a bit, but don't be expecting any snow or anything like that. And your schedule for this one is largely back to the afternoons for us here in the UK, but not quite the usual European times. So FP1 will kick the weekend off on Friday at 9:30am GMT, and FP2 will take place later that afternoon at 1pm. The third and final practice session of the weekend will start at 10:30am on Saturday, with qualifying underway from 2pm. And it is lights out for the race for one last time in 2023 on Sunday at 1pm, and once again that is in UK time. Now, before I make my usual round of predictions, I've picked out 3 talking points that I think are well worth a mention ahead of the weekend's action. To kick things off for this part, both championship titles may have been wrapped up a long time ago, but there are still a few things up for grabs in Yas Marina. Let's start with the teams, and the main one really is the battle for P2 in the constructors' standings between Mercedes and Ferrari, a fight worth millions of dollars in prize money, with Mercedes currently sitting just 4 points ahead of the Scuderia in second place. Fourth place is also still mathematically up for grabs, with McLaren 11 points clear of Aston Martin in 5th place. And the battle for P7 is also still on, with Williams 7 points clear of AlphaTauri. Alfa Romeo and Haas are a bit further back, so they will likely need absolute chaos on Sunday to be in with a shot at P7. But there are only 4 points between the two of them in the battle to avoid being last. Although it is more about pride than anything else, perhaps some contractual bonuses on the line as well, there is a very close fight going on for P4 in the driver's standings. That fight is between Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso on 200 points each, Lando Norris on 195 points, and Charles Leclerc on 188. So definitely keep an eye on that this weekend, and bear in mind as well that Sainz has that Singapore win, so that could help him on countback if there is a tie. Those are probably the biggest things on the table for this one, but just something else to keep an eye on. There are only 4 points between Pierre Gasly and teammate Esteban Ocon, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top this season in that particular teammate fight. I am not going to go through all the possible permutations because we'll be here all day, but stick around because I will be telling you who I think will get what when I do my predictions shortly. Elsewhere, the usual end-of-season test will take place on Tuesday, which, as well as giving rookies and young drivers an opportunity to do some laps of some F1 machinery, also usually includes some tyre testing. However, this year there will not be any new tyre compounds to try out, as Pirelli has confirmed that the FIA has decided the 2024 compounds will be the same as this year, despite the prototype testing we've seen at some events this season. There is going to be one change though, and that is that the hardest C0 compound will be dropped and the sport will return to 5 dry compounds, starting with the hardest C1 and ending with the softest C5. Now I know, given how much we saw the C0 in use this year, that's going to be really difficult for you all to take. After all, it was used at, 0 races in 2023. So that was a complete and total waste of time, and getting rid of it feels like an absolute no-brainer to me. Pirelli expects, by the way, that teams will instead take the opportunity to work on tyre management and data gathering for next season. And on the subject of next season, keep an eye on the news, because although nothing has been officially confirmed at time of recording, it is reported that we could hear what AlphaTauri's new name will be in 2024 this weekend. And if the rumours are true, brace yourself because it's a thriller. They look set to be rebranded as Racing Bull. Yes, that is it, with Peter Bayer telling Autosport that the team name will be fairly generic, with naming rights partners featuring alongside it, so like a title sponsor, for example. I really hope these rumours are not true and they've come up with something better than that, because that really is a load of Racing Bull. Look, I know it's only a name, it doesn't really matter, does it? But I thought they'd be able to come up with something a bit better than that. You know, something that doesn't sound like it belongs in an unlicensed F1 game alongside Super Red Italy team and Anton Martin. But there you go. Guys, Toro Rosso is right there. Just use it. And finally, for this part at least, there are a ton of FP1 driver changes to note ahead of the weekend as teams ensure they meet the requirement to run a rookie in each of their cars over the course of a season. So, here we go. Don't expect to see Max Verstappen or Sergio Perez in first practice, as Red Bull will be running 2 rookies, with Jake Dennis and Isaac Hadjar getting their chance to drive the RB19. What an opportunity. Frederic Vesti will be driving for Mercedes on Friday morning, with Robert Schwartzman doing some laps in the Ferrari. Jack Doohan will be in the Alpine, and Pato O'Ward will be behind the wheel of a McLaren. It will be Felipe Drugovich driving for Aston Martin, with Teo Pourchaire, who is, of course, aiming to officially wrap up the F2 title this weekend, driving for Alfa Romeo in FP1. Ollie Behrman will be back in the Haas on Friday morning, and last but by no means least, Zach O'Sullivan will be driving for Williams. Right then, time for me to make some predictions, and as always, please do not take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun, but if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last week, well, yeah. Let's be honest, pretty terrible. I was right on Leclerc for pole, so that's 1 point, but wrong on everything else. Let's start this week with some quick usual predictions, and brace yourself. I think Red Bull have a fairly good chance of getting a good result here and adding to the 20 wins they have already this season. Controversial take, I know. The sarcasm's strong with this one today. Max Verstappen has won each of the last 3 races at Yas Marina from pole, and I don't think it would be a massive surprise to anybody if he were to do that again on Sunday. I do think McLaren should be better this weekend as a whole, though, and Ferrari as well should, in theory, be right up there too. So for my race predictions, I'm going with a Charles Leclerc pole again because we know that Ferrari has been rapid over 1 lap for good chunks of the season, but I'll go with another Max Verstappen win on Sunday. I'll go with Charles Leclerc for P2 though and pick Lando Norris for the final step on the podium. Just hedging my bets a bit with 3 different teams in the top 3. I'll give the fastest lap for what it's worth to Max Verstappen as well. The reason I've flown through them with a limited waffle is because I also want to predict who will come out on top in those championship battles I mentioned earlier. So first of all, I think Ferrari will just pit Mercedes to P2 in the Constructors, and I'm talking by just a point or 2 here. I just think Ferrari, assuming they don't implode, which is very possible, are going to have the edge over them in Abu Dhabi. I'll go with Carlos Sainz making the top 5 in the race, meaning that even with his predicted P3, Norris won't be able to beat Sainz to P4 in the Drivers' Championship, so the Spaniard hangs on to that, possibly on countback. In fact, in that P4 to P7 battle, I'll go Sainz, Norris, Leclerc and Alonso in that order. McLaren's 11-point cushion over Aston Martin in the battle for P4 in the Constructors should be enough, so I'll predict that will stay as it is. Yes, Aston have had a really strong last few races, but that McLaren is the better car right now, and so it should be enough to get them over the line. And towards the back, I think Williams will hang on to P7 in the Constructors. Don't get me wrong, I can see AlphaTauri having a good weekend, but I don't think they'll score enough to overturn Williams. And for what it's worth, I do think Alfa Romeo and Haas will stay where they are as well, bearing in mind Haas do tend to fall away in the race due to their tyre struggles, so even if they qualify well, I don't think they'll be scoring many, if any, points on Sunday. All of that is assuming, of course, the race is fairly straightforward. If we do get a chaotic one on Sunday, it could all change though, and you know what? I wouldn't mind a chaotic race to round off the season. That is it then for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview and for the previews in 2023. But don't forget, you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. Now, I will be back live with the final race reaction of the season. Have I mentioned this is the last race of the year? I think it's cropped up 1 or 2 times in this preview. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help to give the channel a little bit of a boost. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos or streams. And yes, there will be lots of content out during the winter. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.